Hello and welcome. We are the Ministry of the Real Truth, and today we are going to do something completely different than our usual, create a video and upload it, because we found this particular book bedazzling, baffling, extraordinary, interesting, and so forth. Whether it's true or not, we are open-minded, we're 50-50, we're not anti it, we're not pro it, right? We just found it extraordinary, interesting and possible. Is it true or is it not? Well, we leave that up to you. After watching this video, you could probably go and find that book and read it for yourself, and then decide for yourself, is it true or is it a whole lot of hocus pocus? Yeah, this book is called The Matrix Revealed, Book 1, The Programming of a Planet by Truman Cash. We tried to find some information on that particular person, and we basically found very little, and that Truman Cash is actually that person's pen name. So let's begin reading a certain portion of The Matrix Revealed, Book 1, The Programming of a Planet by Truman Cash that really caught our attention. Here's a little description, information about Truman Cash, who is an ufologist, author of 2 books, The Programming of a Planet and The Eye of Ra. Both volumes date from the mid-1900s. Cash shares many of his insights with William Cooper, Karla Turner, William Bramley, Simon Parkes, Corrado Malanga, Barbara Bartholic, Susan Reed and James Bartley, who were there. In his essays, the researcher focuses primarily on 2 topics: hypnotherapy and abductions, obviously alien abductions. The approach is unusual because Cash studies abductions even at the time of Atlantis and in antiquity, in Egypt and Sumeria, where non-terrestrial beings sowed concepts and religious rituals to subjugate the masses, or keep them under control, right? To make them powerless, to make them their subjects, right? Basically, to have power over them, have control over them. The central idea of the essays written by the scholar is that of the implant stations, i.e., for example, centers for transferring souls into bodies. These stations are a key to understanding the phenomena of abduction. The stations are used to capture souls which are, quote, free, unquote, and transplant them into another soma. Insectoid creatures generate a powerful electromagnetic field that attracts the psyche. The psyche, unable to resist the attraction of a warm and enveloping glow, ends up in a, quote, white light, unquote, chamber to be reprogrammed and prepared for another existence. Body envelopes are also duplicated. According to Cash, many near-death experiences are orchestrated by malevolent creatures in angelic guise. Also, the glow at the end of the tunnel, a glow very often seen by the dying, is the intense light coming from the programming chambers located on the spaceships and in the installations of the aliens. Of course, everything happens against the will of the abductees. The scenario is similar to the one described by William Bramley. He believes that the others need to trap and seduce spiritual beings who are thus condemned to the cycle of metempsychosis. Some investigators, more than to a theft of souls as feared by the Sibylline and fragmentary Gnostic booklet, think to a subtraction of energy by psychic vampires. In that limbo, that no man's land that separates the secular world from the otherworldly spheres, consciousnesses could be at the mercy of larvae in need of feeding on the energies of the dead. It is plausible that these entities are able to generate heavenly visions of bright green meadows, pleasant gardens, clear and bright skies. It is plausible that these entities are able to generate heavenly visions of bright We'll repeat that. Is it plausible that these entities are able to generate heavenly visions of bright green meadows, pleasant gardens, clear and bright skies? These are the magnificent landscapes that the protagonists of the near-death experiences remember to have admired, enraptured, after having usually walked through a tunnel whose outlet was flooded with a sparkling light. Are these places the result of an elaborate deception aimed at damaging souls who were then wormed to be included in containers to host external memories or for other purposes? The picture outlined so far is very controversial, and we must ask ourselves if the transfer of souls is also associated to the cloning of bodies. Truman Cash can be contacted there, and here's some other suggested videos. Okay, what we are interested in when we read this book, what caught our attention was the religious aspects. Okay, so there's quite a lot of details on different people's accounts of being abducted by aliens and so forth, and what happened to them up in these spaceships and in their homes, all that sort of stuff when they were returned. Now, again, we're looking at the religious mentions, right? There could be something in this if it's true. Okay? And it's not like a lot of Christians say, oh, it's all demonic and all that sort of stuff. Possibly, probably. But we're open and we're looking at it and revealing it, bringing it to you. Okay, here's a lot of information here about Jack, who knew there was something very strange about the attic. It's basically his older brother Derek was trying to encourage him to go up to the attic, because apparently when they went up there, there was this alien spaceship not quite centered over it properly or correctly, so this check the beam was on an angle and took them up and all this sort of stuff. Okay, Jack knew there was something very strange about the attic. The impression of two tables being there had always stuck in his mind. His younger brother Bobby was lying on one table and he was lying on the other. One day at the age of 4 he was very agitated, and he told his mother that a big tall witch is up there in the attic. She only tried to calm him down. After several weeks he finally convinced his mother to go up in the attic, only to find there was nothing there. Jack session number 9, June 15, 1994. Jack, it's a winter's time. Derek, one of Jack's older brothers, aged 11, approaches myself and my younger brother Bobby, aged 2. There's some pretty neat things up in the attic, so let's go up there and play. And I've never been up in the attic, so I'm kind of scared of it, because all I've ever done is go up 2 or 3 steps. Nobody talks about the upstairs much, and nobody goes up there much. So it was a big mystery to me, but he talked around my objections, saying you'll be just fine. You'll be okay and you'll be safe and nothing to be afraid of. It's afternoon. Well, I guess it'd be middle afternoon, 2 or 3, and I'm downstairs playing. I don't know what to call the room. It's not the kitchen, it's not the living room, one of the other rooms. And I'm playing with this top, probably a spinning top, turning it, making it spin, a spin top, when Derek comes up to us and starts talking to us and selling us on the idea of going up to the attic with him. Nice people and play. So after several minutes of convincing, and he's talking kind of an interested sound in the conversation, but then kind of a bit too emotional pitch also, and perhaps that's what I sense, and etc etc. They end up going up there. Yeah. There's no talking that goes on. Lewis is on one table, I'm on the other. Derek is waiting between the 2 tables. For my little body it seems like a long distance, but it's like 10 feet, maybe 15 feet apart. 10 to 15 feet apart, the 2 tables. There's a door, an exit door, and that's about the only feature in the room, but it slides into the wall. It doesn't swing on hinges, so there's like an inset in the wall and so forth. Gets taken up, gets some sort of blood extraction, and it's mixed with some other fluid and so forth. Okay, and there's more information here. You go through a first stage, then a second stage. Stage 2 in this mental part is where it's different, and it goes something like this: forget, be thankful, happy and play. Stage 2 is like programming you to forget and remember the other things, and that's done, and they just insert another picture over the actual experience. So giving them all these images, and a sensation goes off in his head and all this sort of stuff. Okay, and there's more information here on what went down. Are they putting pictures in your mind, or is it impressions? Because this guy's under hypnosis by a certain expert. Jack: yes, distinct pictures as well as a feeling, impression, like I'm comfortable and I'm okay, like playing in a bright meadow with some colourful things around. They do something to paralyse my neighbour boy. He's awake but restrained so he can't make a fuss or crying like he has been, because when we first arrived he didn't like the situation and he started to get upset and wanted to go back home. One of the aliens picked him up and put him on the table, and they like restrained, not strapped him, and they have some various things hooked up to him, and they've taken a tissue sample. That must be what they're interested in this time, is tissue, but they have a much larger group than they typically have. Anyway, after their turn is done, then it's my turn and Derek's turn, and I'm on the table. Anyway, they go down my throat with an instrument and look inside. They look at my ear. They have some electrical probes on my foot that aren't comfortable. It's like I feel a shock each time they shock me, etc., etc. So I have these pictures in my mind that cause me a little confusion because they don't jive with my feelings, what my emotions are saying, what's happened. Are these false pictures? Jack: yeah, I kind of have an impression of what's really happening, what really happened, and yet I have a hard time recalling what did happen, other than those fake pictures. He put his images into his mind probably. Instead of a colourless sterile room, it's coloured, it's green. I played with little things, and etc., etc. The following attic episode details some very intriguing psychological implants that reveal the Gray's manipulation of religious beliefs, attitudes, and behaviour. And that's what we're interested in. That's why we skip all the rest of the book. And this hypnotherapist tells Jack to return to the incident he hasn't covered yet. At this point, Jack had uncovered 5 attic incidents, and he knew there was a total of only 6. So this was the obvious question. Jack: yeah, it's somewhere between 3 and 5, and I think it's either 4 or 5. That is the 4th or 5th attic abduction. And it goes into detail here. There is, because it doesn't make sense for me to do things that Derek does, given my internal desire not to. I do. It's almost involuntary, like moving without choice. See if you can contact that programming. This is what the hypnotist might say to him. Note: I have taken the liberty of capitalizing the alien's hypnotic commands to emphasize the programming content and intent. Jack: if you do what we say here, you'll be a good little boy. You have to be a good little boy. It's necessary to obey. It's necessary to be a good little boy. We'll disapprove if you don't want to be a good little boy. And the reverse is when I show resistance and express myself verbally. He uses this line: well, our friends won't like that, and it's important to be good, or something about good. And he's saying something about how it's important, the responsibility of my part and his part to them. Is it? Or to them? Maybe it's supposed to be to them, not sure. So it's partly guilt, and I guess that's what it is, etc., etc. And he's explaining to this hypnotist what's going on. He's getting a lot of pictures about what's happening this time. When I'm on the table, there aren't so many instruments as much as they're just programming. A mental programming that I resist, and that's why. And part of me is really rebelling against that, because I'm not what they like describing telepathically to me. I was chastised first by Derek for not wanting to be with them, chastised by them, and then the programming about my characteristics. They, probably the Greys, chastise. I obey, I don't question, I am weak, I am dedicated to them and their cause, doing what they want me to do. They will take care of me, they will guide me, they will nurture me, feed me. I'm not sure in what way. That's what Jack is saying. And I have to do certain things for them. I'm a friend. I'm faithful to them. Sometimes it's painful, but it has to be that way, because I'm not trustworthy and can't be trusted to take care of myself or even think. And they have to tell me what to do and what to think, how to be and how to do it. And that's really okay. And that they're my friends, and they're there to take care of me. and it may be a little painful at times, but that's just a small price to pay. These are some of the things, and I have this thing attached to this part of my brain here on my left side, like a little bar or something, and it's a slight curving shape. First I'm getting these thoughts of stuff, confusing and overwhelming and overstuffing, and I just get this feeling of like being stuffed and crammed. It also seems like they've implanted certain things, certain phrases and things, and in other words I will say them at various times throughout my life to people. I can't bring up any examples just yet of what I'm supposed to say at various times to various people, and in a way it feels like a part of me inside is being moulded, so that it's not as elastic or flexible, but rather more moulded. I get a very strong sense that there are phrases, key phrases, and certain things trigger, so then they'd be like post-hypnotic suggestions. As far as the moulding goes, it feels like it's the moulding on religious beliefs, like be religious and believe, and to know, just those two things. Instead of being free and open-minded and flexible, I am being trained to limit my thinking in religious terms and beliefs, not think but believe what I'm told. And I suspect there are certain key words and phrases that are implanted in me that when I say these things to other people, it triggers them into what they'll be programmed. It's like not a secret identification code as much as it's the reinforcement of the programming, mutual reinforcement. I also sense that something implanted wasn't. It's like it agitates me, it aggravates me, and it predisposes me for being more angry than I normally am. It's like it encourages my anger or fosters anger, fosters agitation, kind of like they put a thorn somewhere in me that is like a continued irritant. Only this is not a thorn, it's something. It's like a continual irritant. Only I feel that they've sprinkled throughout me several of these thorns that agitate and pulls and hurt and incline me toward expressing anger. That's the entire theory of this abduction. That's the entire theory of this abduction. It's just a mental re-education or reprogramming. This is why a few days later I was talking to our neighbour about going up too. This time, even though I had an uneasy feeling about it, and an uneasy feeling about talking to him, and a distrust of Derek, and a growing concern about what was happening in the attic. And I didn't completely forget this. It's not completely or wasn't completely buried. So this was a major attempt to program me, yet it also seems to have triggered. Survival triggered in me like certain words turned on and a desire to resist them, to not acquiesce, and so forth. And it's really got me a problem, and I must have an avenue that they sense and that they can get to me through and then manipulate me that way. Because while I am determined and strong in some ways, in other ways I buy into their propaganda. Like they tell me I'm this way and this way. It's like guilt makes me agree with them or listen to them or buy into it, which is the best term. Like I'm an angry, upset, frustrated young boy is one of these whisperings in my mind. Another part of me knows, no, that's not true at all, not true all the time, sometimes part of the time, and they're telling me this is the way I am. So apparently they use guilt to manipulate me. When this is all finished and I return back downstairs, this is really odd. I feel like I'm schizophrenic, like I'm confident and determined and know who I am, and like I'm weak and subservient, still want to do what they say. Like I have this real, like a split personality when I come back down to the stairs of his house, right? But I have the memory of who I am. But I'm very agitated and go to my mum and I tell her that there is somebody up in the attic. They're tall, of course, everything is really tall to me, but this big tall witch is up there in the attic, and I'm disturbed. I have some emotions about it. I mean, I'm serious, and I'm kind of disturbed, agitated a little bit, not fast speaking, like that, just a serious tone. And mum calms me down, tells me that nothing's up there, nobody's up there, and so on. And then I go to the bathroom and that's the end. So the hypnotist then suggests return to the beginning and recount the incident and see if you can pick up more of the programming. And he does that. He says he's drawn up on an angle because the ship isn't exactly straight over our house. I'm going at a slight angle on the tractor beam, and when I arrive on the ship I'm placed on this table and I have some, I don't know if it's metal or Teflon or soft metal, something like that. But anyway, actually it's not a metal, it's some kind of material like metal placed on my head, and I start being fed. First of all, I'm reprimanded for not obeying. They're displeased. Jack says he's experienced this kind of scolding from greys on more than one occasion, so he can relate very well to what... Okay, this is the hypnotist saying this. He can relate very well to what Jack is describing here. They're very arrogant and they demand full cooperation and obedience. They are trying to make me feel obligated to them, responsible to them, that I did something wrong. I don't know what. They're not wanting to tell me what's wrong. So they go through a little reprimanding period there at first. It's training. They're like socializing me or training me mentally, emotionally to be inclined to exhibit certain behavior. Not think about certain things, but think about certain other things. And two of the main things is to be religious and to believe, which means don't question. If it doesn't make sense, don't question. Just have faith, believe. Doesn't churches tell you that? Subtly, often. Many churches tell you that. Preachers, teachers, other Christians. I think they are doing something with my energy that's nice and fluid and free-flowing, flexible, and that they're somehow moulding this, fixing it up, shaping it so that it is not flexible. It's rigid, taking on a certain shape. Like moments pass, it's not subtle, but it also holds its shape, holds its form, and they're giving me all that I'm going to live by. And again, there's these phrases and key words. I swear it's just something that comes up in people's conversations frequently throughout the week, maybe not every day, but it's like to think something, to know something, to believe something. When we hear it from each other, it's like these phrases and words are designed for programs that have a certain response to them and so forth. He states it's locked in, this behaviour is locked in, and it's to believe in a certain way, to have certain basic assumptions like I am a creation, there is a God, and he's all powerful, all everything, and I can't do, I don't do, I'm not capable. In other words, there's no self-confidence, no self-esteem. It's like it scares me away from being experimental and flexible and open-minded. Do the organised religions not do that same method? Like the world around me is all material, you have to work to get it. There is a God, it's a He, I'm His creation. Okay, so yeah, it's the basic structure of the system, the worldly system. You've got to work. Okay, everything's material. It makes you materialistic. You have to have this, you have to have that to be anybody or somebody. You have to work to get that. There is a God, it's a He, I am His creation. Whenever I try to approach a certain subject, a certain idea or experience or flexibility, I shy away on a subconscious level. I take myself out of that environment and I push away from that thought. That's what these words and phrases do. Hypnotist, what if you didn't obey these words and phrases? Jack, flexibility is frightening, overwhelming. I would lose my place in society, my ability to relate to reality. It's like there's these fears that scares away, and then there's these others implanted words and phrases and pictures make certain that my mind thinks along certain lines, only along certain lines, probably what they dictate, and it continually enforces others to do the same thing when I use certain words. Okay, there may be triggers. It triggers the programming. This is an intensive brainwashing session, and there's a struggle between part of me and there's a struggle between myself and the part of me that is buying into this, or that propaganda, right, as you mentioned earlier, because a part of me is buying into this, yet a part of me is able to maintain perspective and stay alive and stay awake and remain functioning. And that's the conflict that is going on between us. They don't have me totally programmed, and it shows up on their machines or whatever. They can see how much I'm receiving versus how much they want me to receive or whatever, and they can see, the effect, they can measure, but they're getting a pretty good fill. It's getting pretty good results, and it's satisfied with the results of what I've accepted and taken on. And I feel that this time I adopted a new belief. structure of my environment and of myself that I did not have previously. But if I question and go outside what they feed me, I can get lost, overwhelmed and die. A part of me does survive and stays intact, and there's a part of me as I'm walking down the stairs, obviously from the attic of his house, makes me feel schizophrenic, like I'm two people, and it's confusing and doesn't make sense. It gives me an uneasy feeling about myself and about the attic that I came from, and so forth. And so I just describe it as something that's unknowable, and I can't picture it, I can't see it, it's dark, it's frightening, and it's somebody else working in cooperation with Derek, his brother Derek. I think he's asking, did the mother go up there with him? Does she, Jack's mother, go up with you? No, she doesn't go up for another 2 or 3 months. Just seems like as a child I don't have a proper perspective of time, and so forth. And gets to this part where the hypnotist asks him, what kind of pictures do you see, Jack? Like I'm a stubborn, obstinate little boy, fighting, like resisting, and I'm determined. I get a distinct picture of kneeling in prayer, being in a church. Also, I'm not sure how to describe that picture. It's more like instructions. I think I'm being given a bunch of instructions, and some of these are accompanied by pictures or images, right? Are these pictures your own memories? No, they're projections of how I'm going to be, how they want me to be, a pre-programmed destiny. You mentioned, as a hypnotist, before that there might have been some programming to go out and recruit other kids to bring up to the attic. Jack, this was one of the inducements we had. Hypnotist, this was the programming? Jack, yeah, but damn, the problem is when I was doing it, I didn't feel comfortable, and then after the event I felt rotten, felt responsible for that boy's lousy experience. In that sense, I overcame that programming. That was the only time I ever did that. That was the only time I ever recruited for them, the aliens, the Greys, right? Although there were 6 attic abductions, this author has only presented the foremost interesting information yielding incidents here. One of the attic abductions that he had mentioned in this chapter was the very first incident that popped up in the first session that Jack received. Hypnotism session. It took about 4 years before Jack got over that feeling of distrust for his older brother Derek, who had no memory of anything ever occurring in the attic. Maybe his mind was wiped. That's how they do it. Amnesia, right? In the next chapter we'll continue to follow the chronological abduction pattern through Jack's life. We think there's a bit more on the religious aspect. Okay, here's more information about Jack and the ship, etc., etc., and what happened there. Okay, we'll see if there's any more mention of religion. Goes on about programming, and that makes a mention somewhere on Roman Catholicism. Further on, here we go. Akarat's abduction. Extraterrestrials have not only implanted individuals but also society as a whole. This is accomplished by the selection of a prophet, a chosen one, to broadly disseminate the ET's message. The following is a classic example of a social implant in the form of a new religious sect and secret society. Although I had heard about a possible connection between extraterrestrials and secret societies, I had not yet found in my research that any specific eyewitness, and he carries on. To a point where he's asked, do these aliens, these grays, etc., these abductors, speak verbally or telepathic? Anything? Jack, verbally, their words are all verbal. All their sounds, I mean, they're making lots of raucous noises and sounds. And the hypnotherapist asks, any languages that's distinguishable? Jack, well, it's the native tongue, my native tongue. I assume it's not English because it's not England. But I mean, they're speaking the same language that I understand. And no, I feel uncomfortable with this because it's like I've been given an insight or a view to insane people. And it's just confusing and confounding and a little bit frightening, and carries on. And yet this is like supposed to be. I mean, here I am supposed to communicate this to my fellow neighbours in the country, and here it's supposed to be God. And because my image has always been God lives in the sky, but here I am supposed to report hysterical babble and dances and sequences of movement that would be considered insane. He laughs. I also see a lot of gold in this particular room. Some of the people wear clothes that look like they're made of gold fabric of some kind. Others are wearing a fabric that looks like it's a black grey. Let's see, I'm not sure what material. Well, it looks like a black grey. And then there's another who wears like a purple sequin garment that's got like really distorted angles, like the shoulders. Like one has a real accentuated shoulder pad on this side and then nothing on this side. It's almost like I would see out of surrealistic painting. Laughs. So there's a variety of colours on these garments that these people are wearing. Throughout this nonsense and babble, there are times where the one who's seated on the throne and who is the current exalted one says something that's supposed to be profound in truth. And this is what I'm supposed to remember and relay to the people. So I guess I'm supposed to be on an interview with God, with these people, and that they're telling me truths that I'm supposed to relay to others, you know? And yet they dress it in all of this elaborate ritual of movement, psychotic seeming, no meaning movement and gestures. My eyes have been fully open the entire time from the initial sounds all the way through. I am not unconscious, not at any point, and yet I seem to be an automaton and a sort of paralysis. I can walk and yet a lot of me is like numb. It's like only my observant part of my brain is functioning and I'm just recording data from what I'm observing. Hypnotist, you say you are unconscious or are... You say you are unconscious or are... I am conscious, Jack, I am conscious. Oh, you are conscious, Jack. Yeah, it's just like all my faculties aren't working and so forth. Yeah, it's just that all my faculties aren't working. It's like I'm a verbatim recorder or I don't feel like I guess they'll put me in a position of being a prophet. Why he's talking like this? Because he's probably under hypnotic trance or something. Hypnotism, right? He's trying to recall what he's saying to this hypnotist. So that's why it could get confusing. I don't feel like I guess they'll put me in a position of being a prophet to the people around me. A messenger of God, I guess, is what a prophet is. The area is definitely Asia, near Eastern Europe, like north of Greece. He later discovered that this particular event had taken place in Turkey. It's just that the serious things that they do say on the occasions when they're seated goes something like, the second coming of the God, the Son of God, to remind the people to pay obedience to the gods, to God. The believers will be saved. Basic things like that. Just kind of a reinforcement of things that have been said before. And then I'm supposed to describe these other things to prove to the people that there is validity in what I say. One of the individuals, one of the men on the throne right now is saying, I'm the God of Agamemnon and Imhotep, Amenhotep, I'm the God in heavens, and I see all. I know what's in the minds and hearts of men. I know the believers, the true believers. Then I shall save on the judgment day. I shall save on the judgment day. My silvery wings stretch far across the earth, and I will uplift the men who believe in their hearts and adore and worship me. The next person on the throne who's being exalted is a woman, and she's dressed in a like a ruby red, a beautiful ruby red gown that's sparkly. Again, I would guess something like sequins or something like that, or a mass or series of little shells. She claims to be the god of the Far East, the goddess, of the Far East. She seems to have an emphasis on sensuality and sex. I'm not sure what her name is. It's one of those. Shakti, or somebody like that. Ismet. She claims to be the mother of God, or the mother of humankind, mother in heaven, goddess that gave birth to mankind, and she too expresses veiled threats. Basically, worship me, or I will destroy those in their heart that don't worship me. And she gives me instructions to give to the people of our area to erect a shrine to her. And she gives me this visual impression of what she wants to look like. Dark almond-shaped eyes, long brown hair, and a smooth brownish coloured skin. Then the next person who is on the throne being exalted wears green. The woman's name just really bugs me because it's like these three names. She goes by three names, and they're on the tip of my mind. It's difficult for me to recall them. Ishtar, Hecate. There's a third name, one of her names from Thailand and China, or wherever she was worshipped over there, and I can't quite recall that name. But the other two names were names that she was known by in other civilizations, more in the Middle East and the North. Anyway, she wants me to assure the people that she hasn't gone away, that she's still in the Godhead, the Pantheon of 12, he probably meant Pantheon, and that it's time for us to start worshipping her again. Also, this green fella, the guy who's dressed in green, he feels less comfortable to me. He's giving us instructions about sacrifices and tithes. Let's see, gifts to the gods. And he gives me instructions about where to put all the stuff and what quantities, like loaves of bread, animals, especially sheep, other things too, like rugs, woven fabric. And it just seems like I don't like it, because it seems like it's a lot to have to give to these people, like it'll be a burden on our people. And we're supposed to put this in the shrine that we're going to build with the statue of these two previous people, the woman and the other fellow that preceded him. And he also gives me, it seems like, instructions on a ritual that we have to do. We have to practice like on a, not necessarily a daily basis, but like a couple of times a week or something. And it has to do with gyrations and touching our head on the ground and other nonsense. Things like that really are not done because of a logical reason, but just because he tells us to do them. In other words, they don't make sense. He just wants us to go through these motions. No reason given, just to worship and honour him. Hypnotist, what is his tone of voice? Jack, well, this guy seems to have another symbol that he wants me and other people to wear, and it's like a cross. Let's see. I can clearly see the crimson colour blood droplets coming down from it. Let's see, it's a shape like a dagger or a cross with little drips of blood. It seems like it's a cross, and he wants us to put this as a badge on our fabric, weave it into our fabric. And it's supposed to be a green background with this crimson colour of blood drops and a brown staff or a cross wood anyway. But we're supposed to do some gyrations and standing on one foot, dancing like on one foot and doing a circle and bowing down, touching our heads onto the ground. Just a bunch of nonsensical moves. Jack laughs. This is really quite a long encounter with these people from beginning to finish. It's like I'm gone for half a day with them. There is one more person who's dressed in that black. Let's see, black with some tint of grey to it. So it's not like an ebony black or an onyx black, it's more like a murky black. He's the one who's exalted now on the throne, and they're all doing their gyrations and honourings of him. And so I guess I'm supposed to imitate these people in their, in other words, the rituals that I'm supposed to do are like the same steps and movements and twists and jerks and jumps and falls and bangs. I'm supposed to do the same thing as them apparently. I'm supposed to teach this ritual of movement to the people I'm supposed to go back to. Yeah, the guy in the green, he seems to have a fierce looking face, a frightening countenance. He just feels frightening. The others, more like they're insane, more like they're awesome and inspiring and powerful, but this guy seems to be just frightening. He seems to have a pretty cold, frightening feel to him. Hypnotists, are the faces human? Jack, this guy in the green has a distorted, contorted mask on, and it's like exaggerated features that look pretty frightening, like a jutting jaw, a hooked nose, big ridge on the brow, sunken eyes, indrawn cheeks, but then a forehead that like goes up instead of a smooth forehead. It's like a distorted forehead, like one side comes up in a point, the other side less so. Jack laughs. But 2, it's not a whole head mask, it's just a linear, what do you call a facade, a thin frontal mask. Hypnotist, can you tell me at all what they really look like? Jack, no, this one does seem, let's see, white, bearded is my impression of what they really look like. White skin, beards, brown beards. The guy in the black costume seems to be giving me instructions about a secret, about something that's supposed to be kept secret. Something that only select people are supposed to do and be a part of. He seems to be coaching me in secrets. Kind of like there's going to be a church, and then within that church there's going to be a smaller group, and that's why he's instructing me in. But this seems to be like a delayed memory recall. 2, what he's instructed me in is like a gradual memory recall. It's like I have a, what do you call, time release realizations. Yeah, there'll be certain things that will trigger a series of his instructions. In other words, his instructions are like in 3 parts in all. As I go through experiences or time, then I'll become aware of the first revelation and the second series of instructions, and finally the third. But everything else I'm supposed to report to the surrounding countryside. Obviously when he goes back. He's the last one. The black one is the last one. I just get this veil, this dark light. It's hard for me to hear what he's saying. It's hard for me to understand what he's saying. It's hard for me to recall what he's saying. But it's like secretive and mysterious, and it also makes me afraid. I'm afraid to recall it. I'm afraid to remember it. So after I'm done with him, I march on back out the ship to the sound of music with the instructions that I am their messenger to the people, and I'm supposed to convey this message, and I will be honoured for being the messenger of the gods. I walk out with my back to the ship, and again this uproar, upwell of smoke and dust and roaring, and they leave. They go up into the sky in a bright, very bright blaze, or well, not blaze, but a very bright white light. And it takes some time. My impression, it takes some time for me to come back to my normal senses. Probably a couple of hours. Whereas it was close to noon in the earlier part of the day, the sun is approaching the horizon. It's been a long time in this experience. A lot of hours, probably 6 or 7 hours, have elapsed. The hypnotist asks, "What's your name?" Jack. A Akarat, something like that. It's a weird one. Hypnotist, when is this? What year? Jack, 1632. It must be in the western part of Turkey or whatever. Country borders northwestern Turkey. Maybe. It's like in that area, in that region. I'm just a goat herder, sheep herder. I just am an animal husband. What's the nearest large city? The hypnotist asks. Jack, oh gosh, I don't know. Istanbul's a long ways away. I can't say the names because they're like long ones, many syllables long. Hypnotist, alright, and are you at one end of the incident? Jack, with that, yeah, I can kind of see what my set of instructions are. I'm supposed to go to the village centre and announce the and announce to everybody that I have a message from the gods, and that there's supposed to be like a town gathering in 3 days, and the word is supposed to be spread, and everybody's supposed to come in, lay down their things in the fields of whatever it is that they're doing, and come into town and listen to my instructions from the gods. So that's kind of the aftermath of that experience. Then he relays more information there. And now a god in green. He becomes a patron saint. He's adopted by the people as a patron saint, and so forth. We are going to leave that there for now, and we will continue with part 2 when we return. Hello and welcome back to part 2 of The Matrix Revealed, Book 1, The Programming of the Planet by Truman Cash. We are going to continue from where we left off. Roughly, Jack is talking, stating he's getting some impressions of the green, of the person in green and the woman, the green god. This was a god dressed in green, asked the hypnotist. Yeah, right, they like adapted him as a painter, the same kind of concept as the one thing would protect them and watch over, as the one that would protect them and watch over them and kind of protect them from the weather. And yet they were not a continuous water living group either. They were more like both. I mean, they weren't like sailors going across on the oceans. They were just like fishermen that worked the waters and transported some cargo, but it wasn't long distances, because this part of the country did not have ships that sailed long distances. They just mainly like followed the coastlines, and they would transport cargo, but not great distances. Well, the god dressed in green was like the exalted one, and then there was like one god over all of them. He was the first one on the throne, and he was the one who was saying about my silvery wings stretch far over the earth. Second coming of the Son of God is coming. I will lift up the believers. He was the one who was like the main god, and then all these other groups like had their favourite little god that they could perhaps more personally identify with and relate to. I was just trying to get that woman's third name. It was something like Asher, Ashereth, or I can't quite get it. Asher. Laughs. Jack laughs. Okay, so in the Assyrian histories, the religion, there was a god, a male, a king, a real king called Asher, and also it was the name of God that they used for God in the ancient Assyrian Aramaic, or the Assyrian. Jack laughs. It's the closest I can come. The closest I can come is Ashereth. Ashtoreth. It would be like probably Ishtar or something like that, or Ashtor, a goddess like that. I'm not sure, that just doesn't sound quite right though. She seems to embody, yeah, I've already said that, sexuality and sensuality and independence too. The women who follow her are not exactly geisha women who only study the art of sexual pleasure for men. They also have like an independence too, a strength and independence of men. Some of them don't take up with men at all. Some do, but it's like an optional thing. But I guess their main thrust is feminine strength in the feminine way. Anything else? Asked the hypnotist. My impression is that this developed into a kind of like a religion within a religion in that area. Over a couple of 100 years it basically just developed into its own religion, even though it fits into the broader religion of that region. I'm not sure what the dominant religion in that area is. I think it's Muslim. Okay, so maybe he's having past regressions, past life experiences or something, looking back into the ancient past. Hypnotist, what are you doing at this time? I mean, what's your religion? Jack, I don't know. I do know that I have some basic beliefs and superstitions. Yeah. I don't know. Don't recall the name of the religion right now. I think it's Muslim. Hypnotist, anything else? Jack, no. Hypnotist, alright, let's just see if we can pick up some more information, especially on the ship. So return to the beginning and recount it. Jack, okay, I'm in an area that's rocky and yet it's kind of lush, somewhat hilly, but there's like grasses and trees and some bushes. I'm an animal husband, always takes care of sheep, cattle, etc. Right? Goats. It's a sheep herder, goat herder, whatever. It's approaching noon or midday. I guess it's probably around 11, etc., etc. He's looking up in the direction of the sound that he hears because it's coming from the sky, and it's a partly cloudy day. It was just a few clouds in the sky, but here's this bright cloud up in the sky. It's kind of, I can't make out exactly what it is, but it's there, and it seems to be the source of this beautiful music that it seems like it's more telepathic when they communicate it, as opposed to a broadcast, because it's not like I hear it echoing over the hills. It's like it's in me, and it's really beautiful, and I just stand there enchanted. My eyes are wide open, I'm fully conscious, and it starts to descend, and it's cloudy and obscured from view completely, and yet there's an object inside of it that's metallic, and let's see, it would be like a silver grey colour, silver white, I guess, is more a little closer. It doesn't look huge on the outside. Well, I can see it better. After it lands, I can see it more clearly, and it goes on and on. And looks like he might have entered that ship. He's got this knowing he's supposed to receive this report. Then everything becomes verbally spoken, and that's when they start doing their crazy dance and movements and jerks, and they all get down on their knees and do their head 3 times to the guy that's sitting on the throne. And he's the primary God. He's the one that, after they do a bunch of nonsense, then he says some words that he conveys with a feeling, a profoundness, like, I am the God in the heavens, and you're to tell the people that I know what they feel in their hearts, and they're to pay me obedience and worship me and exalt me and build a likeness of my image in a shrine to house that image, and so on. And there is a second coming of the Son of God will occur. There will be a final judgment day, and all of the believers will be lifted up and saved, and everybody else will be destroyed for being non-believers. He has like a deep booming voice when he's doing this. I also see his gown raised up a little bit as he's seated, and he has straps, sandal-like strap boots, different than the others. Hypnotist: can you see any fingers, or are their hands covered? No, their hands are uncovered. I see his hair behind his mask. Let's see. Just kind of like out to the side, it comes down to probably just above his shoulders. Looks like I can see some brown whiskers under his mask. He's been the God of mankind forever, he says. Down through the ages and through civilizations, he's been known by many names. And he says he's the God of Akhenaten. And so I'm supposed to relay to the people his message about believing, paying obedience, basically converting to his worship. Hypnotist: what's his name? Jack: I don't know. He said he's the God of Akhenaten. That'd probably be Akhenaten. And Imhotep, or however you say it. I guess it's Ra, I'm not sure. Jack later confirmed to the author, the hypnotist, that this God had indeed identified himself as Ra. Jack: the Egyptian pharaohs or kings, Akhenaten, Imnonh, Hotep, Imhotep. I'm not sure how you say that pharaoh's name. Imhotep? I think that's how you say it. It's Imhotep. Hotep. How does it sound when he says it? Asked the hypnotist. No, there are various spellings and pronunciations of Egyptian words because no one knows what the vowels were. However, these vowels and pronunciations could be pieced together by anyone who would conduct extensive past life work in this area. So this is what this Jack must be going through under this hypnotist, right? Going back into past lives or regression. Jack laughs. Imhotep, his garb is one of 2 colours, white and gold. Anyway, he's done, and they all start doing their stuff again. They're dancing like a deer and banging their head 3 times and doing some jumps and jerks and all this kind of stuff. And he steps off the dais and he starts going around with them, and it just looks like to me like a babbling bunch of insane people. And then another one steps onto the throne, and finally all this nonsense settles down, and she starts to speak to me, and she's the one dressed in the ruby red gown dress. She has on the mask of a woman of a beautiful countenance, and again I can see some of the dark brown hairs of her that goes down past the top of her shoulders, probably to the middle of the shoulder blades. It's not really long, but it's a beautiful, thick, full brown hair. She requests that we build an image in her likeness, and this is conveyed telepathically, the picture that I see of her that's supposed to be built in a statue form. This is kind of odd, but she seems to be wearing like a pants, like this image that we're supposed to build of her, a shirt that looks well like a vest, kind of, where her bust is partially revealed, and the pants would be like a pajama type of pants, a balloony, flimsy kind of material. Not quite see-through, but close. No shoes, beautiful face, beautiful hair, a jewel in her nose. It looks like a diamond in her nose. And then she says that she is the mother of creation, the mother of God. She says that she is, she's the mother of God, etc. She created humankind, and that we are to exalt and worship her. I don't get a lot else from that. Anyway, Jack laughs. The group starts going into the gyrations again, and they're raising their voices and chanting things like, we worship you and we honour you and you are the most exalted, and that kind of stuff. But they writhe around on the floor, they dance like an animal, they jump, they jerk, and they raise their voices in the loud pitch, and then they lower their voices, sometimes kind of rising, swelling, falling in their singing voices. Then the god dressed in the green gets onto the throne, and after a while it dies down, all the ruckus and the moving and the noise dies down, and this one feels harsh, he feels unforgiving, he feels frightening, he feels those kind of attributes. I like the colour of green that he wears, but again that little insignia, well I guess that's what they're supposed to do. What we're supposed to do is as a show of obedience and dedication to him. Weave onto our clothes like our shirt, our top green with crimson drops of blood, like 2, maybe 3 drops of crimson blood, and so forth. And a wooden centerpiece on this patch. Hypnotist, is it made of wood? Jack, no, it's just supposed to look like wood. I mean, the symbol is a wooden object, yeah. Hypnotist, is it a cross? Jack, I don't know, because it's like I see both. It's like I see a cross and a staff. Hypnotist, are they together? Jack, that might be it. It might be that there's a cross with a staff with a hook around the top part of the cross. No, that's not right either. It's because this staff is more like a crooked staff. It's not like the hooked staff like Jesus carries or somebody like that. It's more like a physician's staff, more like a snake that looks like a staff, like a wavy kind of, like a wavy staff that goes to a point with a bigger head, then comes down to a tip. Is there a handle on it, an enlargement at the top of the staff? Jack, no. I don't know. Yeah, maybe both of them are on the, no, I don't know. I have to move along because they just have me confused because I can see both of them. Maybe there's supposed to be 2 different insignias, and one for one group and one for the other, and so forth. And he gives me some instruction about secrecy. These things are supposed to be done in secret without the larger congregation knowing, the larger religious following knowing. So this is supposed to be a select group, and I'm supposed to select only men. And it's going to be like a secret society within our religion, and I'm supposed to pick out mostly younger men of different trainings and temperaments. But it's supposed to be like a very slow process of picking up these people. Very slow. Like I'm not supposed to have 50 right off the bat. It's like 1 and 2 and 5 and 10 for a few years, and have that number gradually but really slowly increase. So they will become large numbers like in a few hundred years. But for the first 50 years, just a small group of people, maybe 20 or 30. And my impression is that it takes several months before I choose one person. So my first instructions are, it's like they will slowly come to me. The first set of instructions will slowly come to me over the first few days and months after I have this experience. Like I won't remember anything immediately, right away. It's like it'll be delayed over a week's period of time, 2 weeks period of time, and then I'll start to remember the first parts of this person's instructions. But these last 2, the one in the green and this one, well, the one in the green had just a mean looking face and so forth. And he goes into the description of these gods. There's more information here. Trying to find this thing on Roman Catholics. Okay, there's more description of these different gods in different colours with different insignias. Here's one accurate. Such a foreign name seems like they got a key, a golden key. On this final initiation level, they would receive a key that was gold. Maybe that's the Ankh. Not sure what that key is too, but it's like they wore it around a cord, and it would hang from their waist inside of the garment. It would only show on the outside of the garments during our meetings. Very few people with a golden key. That is the sign or the symbol of the god that was dressed in green. Well, in that lifetime before I died, we had sent missionaries to the Mediterranean, to Northern Africa, and to Europe. Yeah, some, etc., etc. Well, it wasn't a castle, but it was like our own headquarters where we worshipped and did our rituals. Hypnosis, is this in Turkey? Yeah, northwestern Turkey, maybe. I think it's Armenia. I think it's the country that borders Turkey. It's like on the other side of Turkey, etc. What's the name of the order at this point and later on? Asked the hypnotist. Well, Holy Order of the Scimitar. It seems like that's the name that comes to mind. Scimitar is a long curved sword with the sharp edge on the convex side. Okay, it's probably the religion of the... It's a general branch of the Muslim religion, and there's this one that has these several gods that they worship, and within that there's several sects, one that worships the female goddess, and then one that worships the god dressed in green, and the one in black, but they all in general look to the top god as the main god that is going to send the second coming of the Son of God and do the final judgment day. I suspect that this is an offshoot of the Muslim religion, but this developed into its own religion. I wonder if they're talking about Christianity. There's more information here. So he must be seeing all these religions that came to be, that existed over time, over the millenniums. Okay, and it looks like he's going into Revelations here, the book of Revelations, but Egyptian style. Akarat's abduction dramatically illustrates the third type of implant, which I call a social implant, simply because it affects society as a whole. This type of social implant is different from the hypnotic social implant discussed in chapter 12, in that the recipient is conscious and not under hypnotic control when he or she voluntarily accepts it. However, it appears that telepathic hypnosis was used in Akarat's first contact with the Ra Ishtar ET group, and this is why I call it an abduction rather than a voluntary contact. Akarat then voluntarily devoted his life to spread the word of Ra and expanded the holy order of the Scimitar, which makes it a social implant by definition. Before we take a closer look at Akarat's abduction account, let's compare it with Ezekiel's experience from the King James Bible. I've put my own comments in brackets in order to point out the similarities. So he's referring to the book of Ezekiel, and we have a link to that so we can compare those verses. But it seems to be in an Egyptian context. Okay, there's Ezekiel 1, chapter 1, 1 to 16. And then 1:17 to 1 to 3:14. And a comment here. Much of what Ezekiel described is difficult to visualize simply because back in those days there was nothing familiar with which he could compare this kind of experience. He's talking about UFOs. Nowadays we have commonplace terms like flying saucers, spacecraft, UFOs, tractor beams, lasers, electricity, electromagnetics, and so forth. People of ancient civilizations often described anything that flew as literally having wings, because the only thing that flew then were birds, bats and bugs. Ancient gods were often depicted with a winged disc or with wings attached to their arms to symbolically illustrate the ET's ability to traverse the heavens. However, in some cases the reference to wings may be literal, as there are indeed ET's with wings. I have uncovered evidence that sheds new light on the angel phenomenon, which I'll cover in detail in book 2. It's The Matrix Revealed, book 2, Programming on the Planet, in book 2. Ezekiel's ETs may have been wearing wings as part of their costumes, though. According to a 1996 Gallup poll, more than 5 million Americans claim to have seen a flying saucer, not just a nondescript UFO, but a real disc-shaped exotic aircraft that they described as being a flying saucer. Did you know that in the Aramaic scriptures, the original ancient Aramaic, Exodus, it actually describes Moses not hearing God or seeing God from a burning bush, but on a flying, flaming sun disk. 3 beings inside it, and he knew one of them was God, but is too afraid to look. And so forth. Therefore, in modern times, a definite image and concept comes to mind when someone meets its flying saucers. On the other hand, in both of Kevin's abductions in the 1800s, in Italy, chapter 10, he first thought the flying saucer was a bird from the viewpoint of a 19th century Italian. As it drew closer, he had no words with which to describe it, because this occurred before the advent of the airplane, rockets and sci-fi movies. However, it is easy to notice that the similarities between Ikarat's experience and that of Ezekiel's. The difference is that Jack Wiley could describe it all in 20th century terminology, and because of that, he knew it wasn't God. He knew it was a flying saucer with human-looking ETs aboard who were only pretending to be God. Therefore, Jack, as a 20th century man, was not fooled by the ETs' shenanigans and even described their behaviour as being quite insane. However, Jack, in his previous lifetime as a 17th century goat herder, was taken in hook, line and sinker by these manipulating ETs who easily convinced him that they were indeed gods. In Exodus 13:21, Yahweh or Jehovah is described as leading the Hebrew people by day in a pillar of a cloud and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light. Today, extraterrestrial spacecrafts are often described as glowing or giving off a great deal of light or extending truncated beams, pillars of fire. Also, eyewitnesses, including myself, we also have seen modern day UFOs produce a cloud around them which completely shrouds their appearance. The UFO and its cloud can disappear completely in seconds. I found that Mount Rainier is a good place to observe this phenomenon. When Moses delivered the 10 Commandments, the people saw the thunderings and the lightning and the noise of the trumpet and the mountain smoking. Exodus 20:18. Whether this fanfare was due to the propulsion system of the spacecraft or if it was pure theatrics, we can only speculate. In modern times, extraterrestrial spacecraft are usually reported as making little or no sound, but they can also produce a discomforting din if the ETs choose to do so. Both Ikarat and Ezekiel revealed the true nature of these gods when they noticed that underneath their own outlandish costumes and masks were human hands. It's not surprising that even today some people imagine God to be a bearded man sitting on a throne, as can be personally proven by out-of-body experiences and past life memories. We are not bodies, we are spiritual beings. If it is true that we were created in God's image, then God would also be a spiritual being, not a human male in a glowing, noisy, smoking aircraft. Therefore, it is a human male in a glowing, noisy, smoking aircraft. Therefore, it is clear that we have been deceived. Also, it is interesting to note that in both cases, the structure in which God appears to the prophet is made of metal. If one investigates other ancient prophets and the mythology of various civilizations, one encounters the same UFO prophecy pattern over and over again. Even today, this phenomenon still continues as some UFO contactees and abductees channel prophetic messages from entities who identify themselves as ascended masters, benevolent ETs or beings from higher dimensions. The god impersonations of the Ra Ishtar ET group do not necessarily negate the existence of a supreme being or a supreme beingness. Ikarat's and Ezekiel's experiences merely indicate that people's religious beliefs and practices have been manipulated by these masquerading ETs throughout history. The most significant aspect of Ikarat's abduction is the first-hand eyewitness account of the creation of an antisocial secret. society within the framework of a religion, and all this is accomplished via extraterrestrial manipulation. The author's research took a dramatic turn when Jack Wiley and himself uncovered his past life abduction as Akarat. In August of 1994, he decided to delve more deeply into secret societies and the identities of the ETs who had contacted Akarat. One thing that he discovered was that no matter who the prophet was, or what the religion was, or what civilization it was, the major secret societies were inherently wedded to a religion. The religions, in turn, could be traced to a god or gods who flew in the heavens in craft of various descriptions. There are, however, purely political, non-religious secret societies such as the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, and the Council on Foreign Relations, CFR, which were created either directly or indirectly as a result of the machinations of members of the major secret societies and ultimately the machinations of extraterrestrials. Akarat's abduction confirms much of the research of Zecharia Sitchin, who covers the activities of the Ra Ishtar ET group in his series of books based on archaeological discoveries of the writings of ancient civilizations. The historical account of these particular ETs and the influence that they have exerted on Earth societies through religions and secret societies is so far-reaching and of such magnitude that the author can only give it cursory treatment here. He will expose the secret society phenomenon in greater detail in Book 2. In the case of Akarat's abduction, we can postulate two different scenarios. One, the ETs are lying about who they really are, or two, the ETs are telling the truth about who they are. Even if these ETs were lying about who they actually were, it still demonstrates that extraterrestrials are the source of most, if not all, of this planet's religions and secret societies. However, if we proceed from the assumption that these gods were actually telling the truth about who they were, then it becomes even more intriguing and revealing, and more of the pieces of the puzzle fall into place, and so forth. And he goes on about the MK Ultra program, approved by CIA Director Alan Dulles in 1953. We actually watched the latest 2022 movie MK Ultra, bit slow, bit draggy, but yeah, not bad, pretty good what they got up to, the CIA, etc., and what this doctor who was taken on board was told to do and what he witnessed, etc. Okay, there's more information here, and these guys have characteristics that were consistent from one civilization to the next. See something here about the Sumerian civilization. The oldest translatable writings in existence today came from the ancient Sumerian civilization, which existed nearly 6,000 years ago. It mentions about Babylon. Goes on to talk about Ea, the old Sumerian cuneiform texts, etc., the myths, and then Ishtar, the Queen of Heaven, and so forth. And he was also unable to locate any historical reference on the prophet Akarat. It appears that this holy order of the scimitar didn't develop into a major well-known secret society. However, one of these secret society symbols that Akarat was instructed to wear was a black shirt. The Italian fascists and the Nazi SS all wore black shirts too, so perhaps there was a connection. The Nazi SS especially could be appropriately labelled as a secret society, even though it was not directly connected with a religion. And it goes on about Ishtar's modus operandi, or method of operation. Again, Nordic legions and so forth. Still trying to find that thing about the Roman Catholics. There's quite a lot of information here, religion-wise. What's this? One of the primary purposes of secret societies is to create chaos on Earth. Akarat's Holy Order of the Scimitar, the Illuminati and Freemasonry are just three examples of this principle at work. The Order of 33-degree Freemasonry does not refer to the peaceful restructuring of society, but rather the tightening fist of government control of the people, and so forth. But it doesn't mean that they don't help people, the Freemasons. There's a lot of history here, religious history. And it seems to go into the Sumerian and Assyrian religions. When the god Marduk became angry with the king and people of Babylon, he ordered 70 years of desolation and allowed the Assyrian king Sennacherib to conquer the city with the guidance and weaponry of Ashur, the all-seeing. Yeah, that's the title of God, the Assyrian god, and that's what these Ashurbanipal, etc. took on as their title. In like manner, Yahweh later meted out 70 years of desolation upon Jerusalem for worshipping Ishtar, the queen of heaven, and other gods, and allowed the Babylonians to tear down the walls of the city of Jerusalem, and so forth. Sitchin, 1985, page 14, page 20. Does this mean that Yahweh, Marduk, Ra and Ashur were really the same person manipulating wars between cities, or was this in reality rivalry between feuding ETs? Whoever they were, these repeated examples of warmongering indicate that these so-called gods were quite insane, and untold numbers of unquestioning earthlings have been suffering for thousands of years because of it. In chapter 12 of Numbers, we gain further insight into the identity of Yahweh. Then the Lord came down in a pillar of cloud, transporter beam. He stood at the entrance to the tent and summoned Aaron and Miriam. When both of them stepped forward, he said, "Listen to my words. When a prophet of the Lord is among you, I reveal myself to him in visions," telepathic implants. "I speak to him in dreams. But this is not true of my servant Moses. He is faithful in all my house. With him I speak face to face, clearly and not in riddles. He sees the form of the Lord." So here we see that Yahweh was not only of a human form, but he was specifically referred to as being of the male gender. Although the gods Yahweh and Ra have been referred to as invisible or hidden gods throughout history, it appears that in reality they are nothing more than flesh and blood extraterrestrials with clear psychotic attributes. This invisible or hidden aspect of Ra and Yahweh was probably due to their abilities to telepathically convey messages to their chosen prophets without having to appear to them in person, in much the same manner that New Age prophets channel ETs, ascended masters, or beings from higher dimensions. Note, in Book 2, the author will clarify how he came to discover these phenomena, and so forth. Wow, it's going into a lot of about the religions. Christianity appears to have borrowed many of its myths and symbols from earlier ETC manipulation. The cross, for example, is a very old ETC symbol. It has been proposed by some UFO believers that Jesus was a genetic manipulation of extraterrestrials. As we are witnessing today, ETs do indeed have the technology to create virgin births, so perhaps he literally was a son of a god, a genetic hybrid ET human. Was the Star of Bethlehem really a UFO? The Son of God Judgment Day theme appears to be woven into numerous ETC social implants. If you study secret societies in depth and then examine the teachings of Jesus, you'll see some striking parallels. Given the ETC's track record of deception and the creation of an endless line of prophets, this may be more than mere speculation. As you will remember, in Akarat's abduction, Ra proclaimed a final judgment day and all of the believers will be lifted up and saved. This is not only a common Christian belief, but many New Agers believe that they will be beamed up into spaceships and saved by ETs right before a major Earth cataclysm soon to come. These revelations come from channeled entities who usually stipulate that only those who have achieved a higher consciousness or higher frequency will be chosen for this extraterrestrial version of the rapture, etc. Yeah, some of those gurus that proclaimed all that stuff, they were mad in the head. and a lot of their people suffered because of it. They were killed, probably all planned by CIA or whoever. Mind manipulation games, MK Ultra, all that sort of stuff, maybe. And there's more information here. I'm not too sure if we've come across that Roman Catholic thing yet, but we'll keep looking. Okay, it's the end of the book. So maybe we did come across it somewhere. And it's basically that you're being programmed through this Roman Catholic Church, what to think, how to think, what to believe, and so forth. But yeah, it looks like this guy Jack Wiley had hypnotism and was put through past life, past regression, and revealed all these aliens presenting these different religions, wearing different outfits and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, quite interesting. Actually, go back a bit. Yeah, here it is about the Roman Catholics. According to his past life hypnotism and past life scenario and past life regression. Yeah, we hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe to our channel, give us a like, add your comments below the video. We'll get back to you on those as soon as we can. And then go share this video or these videos in this series with family, friends, neighbours and others that are interested in ufology, etc, etc. Because it sort of hints false religions created by these ETs, etc, as a way to manipulate human beings, etc. Okay, psychological implants. It's got that information here. Breakdown of will and spirit, propaganda programming. Programming that abductees should be grateful to them, the ETs. The abductees are chosen ones. Aliens will save the planet. They'll save the chosen ones, build a new world. Doom and gloom, prophecies. All to be good. New heaven, new earth, all that sort of stuff. Programming to keep people divided, disunity. Isn't that what religion has done? Divided people. They used to be united, but somebody created division. Now they're at each other's throats over religion. Their religion, organised religion. Reinforcement of many different religious beliefs to maintain disunity, and so forth. So yeah, again, if you like this video, subscribe to our channel, add your comments below the video, and then go share it with your family, friends, neighbours and others.